The Daily Dribble.
Welcome back to the Daily Dribble podcast, guys. As always, I'm your host, Nick Zammit, here back for our first episode of 2023. Joining me is Mr. Lee Hancock.
Lee here.
Mr. Rowe Hancock.
Glad to be here.
Lads, Happy New Year.
Yes,
Bloody hell, here we go,
Year.
2023. How we feeling? New Year, pumped?
Pumped. The podcast is feeling a bit fresh. Took the week off.
Did you have a nice one? Well, here's the question I'll pose to you guys. Did you make it to 12 o'clock on New Year's Eve? Did you see the New Year in?
I did.
You did. Excellent. Rowe, yourself?
Yes, yeah, I was up there at 12 o'clock as well, just watching my favourite movie as well, which was quite nice.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
You know it, Nick.
There we go.
Yes, they're bringing it in the right way.
Good man.
What about yourself?
Mate, I was there. I was going off like a cut snake. Woke up without a hangover, so it was a very successful start to 2023, and I'll continue to build off that momentum, hopefully.
Yeah, positive start.
But stoked to be here with you guys today. As we said, a week off. Back first episode of 2023. It's going to be another massive year of basketball, approaching the second half of the season now. Incredible races taking place in both the East and Western Conference. So what we thought we'd do today is just highlight from the first, I guess, half of the season heading into 2023, some of the biggest surprises to come out of the standings thus far from both conferences.
And there's been some big ones.
For better or worse, hasn't there? Some
absolutely.
very interesting talking points to get into there. We'll touch base on all the notable odds and ends momentarily. Before we do so, though, guys, a big shout out to both Stadium Scene and The Cover. As we head in the new year, they're continuing to keep everybody around the globe, US, Australia, Canada, up to date with all of our content and other aspiring content creators out there. So certainly appreciate all their continued work and support. Lads, let's get into some odds and ends. I'm going to start with a bit of trivia for you guys.
Here we go.
Just,
Early morning trivia.
Just test how the old brain's firing into the new year.
Rightio.
But now we all undoubtedly, every basketball fan around the world pretty well saw Donovan Mitchell's incredible, just record-breaking performance against the Bulls the other day.
Enormous.
He became just the seventh man in NBA history to score 70 or more points. Now, it's the highest score since Kobe's 81 in 2006 there. He finished with 71 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists, went 22 of 34 from the field, 7 of 15 from 3, and 20 of 25 from the line. Now, without Garland or Mobley, incredibly close contest that needed every point from him.
Yes.
And I think did you see the report afterwards that there was a lane violation?
No, I didn't see
Off
this.
the last free throw that he got the rebound, got the putback to seal it to OT. It should have been called away.
Ooh,
Little lane violation,
controversial.
but don't let that ruin a good story.
No.
I want to get you guys to name the 6 other players who have scored 70 or more points.
So
Kobe, D-Book.
so let's get the obvious ones
Booker.
out of the way. Booker,
Kobe.
So we're looking at
4 to go. Wilt.
4 to go.
3 to go. Wilt's on there.
Wilt's on there. Is he in NBA records or is he in ABA records? But anyway, doesn't matter. Who else? Who else
Do you need some clues?
Throw MJ in there.
No.
No MJ.
69 was his highest.
Oh,
Right.
okay. AI?
No.
No.
You've got a Lakers legend in there. Probably doesn't garner as much attention as a Lakers stalwart as, the Kareems, the Kobe's, the things like
Not
that.
Shaq.
No, not Shaq.
No.
A little bit older.
A little bit older than Shaq.
You're looking
Jeez,
playing in
I'm
the.
stuck
You're looking
here.
at Elgin Baylor for that one.
Elgin Baylor.
Elgin
right,
Baylor,
okay.
and then you've got 2 Davids. Can you
David
give me
Robinson.
David Robinson.
He's one.
Yep,
Was he?
and 1 to go.
Wouldn't have picked that.
David. Who's another?
Bit of a hard pull, I reckon. This one,
Give us some
David
clues.
Thompson.
Oh, okay.
David Thompson.
So there's the 7 men now. Wilt, David Thompson, David Robinson, Kobe, Devin Booker, Elgin Baylor, and joining that illustrious list, Donovan Mitchell now. So what do you guys think? It was a phenomenal game. Did you guys happen to watch it?
Unfortunately, I didn't, but I did see the condensed version of the
Me
game.
too.
But
The
it was
condensed version itself was long enough. in its
yeah,
own
it
right.
was. It was. No, it was an absolutely phenomenal effort by Donovan Mitchell.
Do you think with a performance like this, it just kind of puts him back in people's mind, possibly at the MVP table?
Not at the MVP table.
You don't
I
think
mean,
so?
it was the most outstanding game individual performance I've seen in a while.
Better than Luca's 60, 22, and 10?
Oh,
I'd
Jeez,
say
how-
so. just because of we don't expect that from Luka, but it wasn't unheard of that he did that. But it surprised me that Donovan.
It's more
scored
likely than
71.
Mitchell scoring.
Exactly.
70. Okay.
But yeah, one outstanding, very good performance doesn't put him in MVP talks for me. He's around that 7-6 mark still, but that's not MVP talks.
I think he's in consideration. I wouldn't put him in like the top 3 necessarily, but I think I'm with you, Lee. I think he's sort of just hovering around the 5, 6, 7 mark. And when your team in the Cleveland Cavaliers are performing as well as they are,
sitting 4th at the minute, only 2 games back of the number 1 seed.
Exactly. So they're not far behind. Donovan Mitchell's been a huge contributor, particularly off enormous games like that one. He has to be in consideration in some aspect. But I guess from my perspective, I look at Donovan Mitchell and I think he's a great player, but I feel like to a certain extent I have still underrated him. I remember when we were having our Would You Rather episode the other week.
Yep.
I think he wasn't getting as much love as he perhaps should have.
Yeah.
But he has these 70-point games where he's straight back into the front of mind, and you can't underrate Donovan Mitchell because he's an absolute superstar of the league.
Well, we saw it in the bubble, this performance as well. He's got these, it's kind of somewhat reminiscent of a Booker in that ability to just score at will.
Yeah.
Just like turn on the afterburners and just go bananas. I found this game partly in due to the fact he also had, 11 assists there, 8 rebounds, a lot better of an overall performance than Booker's, 70. Just purely for the fact, as I said, they needed all of his points. With Booker's, it was a bit of a blowout. They were winning. It was all under control. They were just kind of feeding it.
It's garbage time.
Whereas this was one of the most, and I don't think it's quite sunk in yet. Like, he's on a list of 7 players in NBA history, how historic it was. But fair play to him. I think it certainly boosts his MVP credentials. You know, a couple more games like this, if the Cavs can continue to win and keep their momentum rolling, I'd have him in and around the 4th to 5th mark at the minute. Probably not quite up there with the Giannis, Jokic, you know, KD, Tatum hanging around the periphery.
I mean, that's 4 right there.
Yeah, you can make it. Yeah, well, there you go. So I think he's in and around the mark.
I just love how D-Book fans are salty after Donovan Mitchell's game. It kind of symbolizes Suns fans. I think they were like, Devin Booker had 50 at the half. If he kept playing, you know, the minutes that Donovan played, he would have had 100.
They're kind of running parallel at the minute in their careers, almost to a certain extent, aren't they?
Yeah, they are to a certain extent.
I just think Donovan is way more consistent.
And Devin Booker.
Right, there you go off the dome. Who would you take?
I'm not underrating Devin Booker either. I think I would probably take... Oh, that's so difficult.
Because you think recency bias.
Yeah, recency bias comes into the equation as well. I think I would probably still take Devin Booker between the two, but it's a close one. Now, with the 70-point games, there was this conversation throughout the week. Out of all the current crop of players, who do you think will be the next one?
Okay.
Put your predictions in now. Who will be the next player to score 70 points?
I think it's probably... Oh, shit.
One player.
I could say KD,
like 3 players.
But I think I'm going to go Embiid.
Embiid? Okay. Yes. Yep.
I'll go... Can I name like 3?
You can name 1.
2.
Mate, you make the rules as you go.
I'd say
give some honourable mentions.
I'd say Luka can put up 70.
Yeah.
And then honourable mentions D-Book, and I'll put D Mitch back in there too.
Yeah,
doubling up.
Yep, I think he could, not back to back, but
Luka came front of mind to mine as well, particularly if it goes to an OT game or a double overtime game.
Yep.
We've seen how easy it is for him to score 50.
Absolutely.
It's not going to take much more to get to that 70 mark.
Who would you bet? So Luka's your pick?
I reckon Luka Doncic. Yep.
Beautiful.
For sure.
Lads, we'll move ahead. Head to the Western Conference with news coming out that Zion Williamson is set to be reevaluated in 3 weeks' time after suffering a hamstring injury against the 76ers on Tuesday. Fingers crossed it's not a reoccurring thing. Hamstrings, once they go once, they can tend to niggle and linger a little bit.
Yes.
You guys ever done a hamstring?
I've done a slight strain and they're not very much fun.
No, not yourself, Lee?
No, I haven't.
No, I've done same like a light strain. I know people who've completely like torn it, whatever else. But even a slight niggle is, it sets you back.
It's more than enough.
So he's been incredible this season. 26 points, 7 rebounds, 4.5 assists. The only small silver lining in this is for the Pelicans. You know, they've been red hot the last couple of weeks. Probably the last week or so cooled down a little bit. But news starting to build that they are expecting Brandon Ingram back hopefully very shortly, which should just alleviate a little bit of the pressure on CJ McCollum.
I'd say a lot of the pressure.
Yeah, well, that's it.
You know,
and
he's their leading scorer, is he?
He'd be close. Zion at 26 a game, I think, would be right there with him.
And
CJ
been
up over
out.
20.
Brandon Ingram's been out for a while too,
Well, with
hasn't
that
he?
toe injury, and it's just been setback after setback. But it's just a bit of a shame, isn't it, so far with the Pelicans? We haven't, for as good as they've been, we haven't been able to see them at full strength yet.
Zion in particular as well. Like,
Oh.
I mean, can we get through one season, just one season?
We cannot.
He's showing how good he is, though, isn't he?
Yeah, I know. This is the thing. If he was like super durable and was able to play like the fair majority of games, he'd probably be right there in MVP contention.
He was getting talk a couple of weeks ago when he'd strung a few of those quality games together. But
yeah,
I mean, it shows how good they're gonna be when they're both back. Though they're sitting third in the West at what 23 and 13 or something.
I think you're pretty well on the money
24 and 14.
Yep.
Third in the West. Like, talk about surprises. I thought that'd be good, not this good.
Well, I'm trying to think where I had them now.
I think you had them up there, Nick.
I
You
think
can
I
say
had them.
it.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead
think I
and
had
say
them
it.
right up there. I thought they were going to be good, but
Give him his flowers.
I think there's been a lot of they've been better than even I thought,
Yeah.
especially the role players.
Even
Dyson
exceeded.
Daniels.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
talked him up for the last 12, 24 months before he came into the NBA, but he has really even surpassed what I thought he would achieve, and they're just in a really, really good spot at the moment. So,
and the team chemistry, I don't know. Like, we've seen a lot of these teams with the pre-game entrances. There's been a lot of hate around it, but I actually find them really entertaining. There's been a lot of people saying how corny it is and stuff, but just have a bit of fun. It's just a game.
Yeah.
Like, what are we getting so serious
Grizzlies
about?
walkout is the best. Though.
Yeah, it is. It is by far. I love that walkout.
it's
as
if
much
you were in opposition, how would you feel walking out to that? Would that fire you up more?
Oh God, yes.
to see them, the opposition, doing it. Yeah, probably if I was the opposition, but as a neutral NBA fan,
That's
watching
good,
that
isn't it?
kind of thing, it's so fun.
I love it.
So
well,
fun.
hopefully it's only a quick injury there. Likewise, Lee, the news continues to get worse and worse for the Hornets. Kelly Oubre out for the next 4 to 6 weeks after undergoing surgery on a torn ligament in his left hand. He's been a bit of a shining light this season for you guys. 20 points a game, which with that, for as good as he's been, it means now with him out, there's a lot of slack to pick up on that offensive side. I don't know who's going to pick up that 20 points a game.
No, I hope no one does. I hope we finish bottom of the rank so we get Wemby, to be honest.
I think you might have just as of the other day. Yep, no, there you are, last at the minute, running with 10 and 29 record.
I was going to put them on my surprise list, but I just didn't want to talk about them.
Understandable. There's nothing really positive to say at the minute, is there?
Do you reckon Kelly Oubre being out coincides with a decrease in female attendance at the Hornets games?
That's
an interesting one.
I don't know about this because I think he's a little bit overrated on the looks department.
But you've got the male gaze, you see. You've got to put yourself in the female perspective.
Is this century's Rick Fox? Remember Rick Fox?
Yes.
Is it because he's got like a bad boy look a little bit?
But he's
I think
like his eyes are quite nice.
He's got soft features.
I think he's
like
a good-looking guy.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who would be the best-looking player.
Yeah, maybe that'll have to be an episode in itself.
That could be a fun
That'll be
one
very
to delve
subjective.
into. My word,
Tell you what, Delhi will be up there.
Delhi, yeah, he gets the what is it? The like the Australian bump, doesn't he?
He does.
The
Patriotic bump.
Yeah, patriotic bump. That's what I'm thinking of. On other injury news. The Pistons will also be without Marvin Bagley for an extended period of time after an injury to his right hand. 10.5 points, 6 rebounds this season. Currently sitting with right there with the Hornets, right at the bottom of the East. Kind of feels, again, for them, kind of like the Oubre situation. Like once Cade went down, it was pretty much curtains. Both those teams just hunting for the Wemby stakes now. So, not the worst time to go out injured there for Bagley.
I'll tell you what, though, just quickly on Bagley, he's another guy, likewise with Zion Williamsons, who you just want to see him string together some games because at the moment he's finding it really difficult to go on long stretches without getting some sort of injury, whether it be
He's looked better.
He's looked much better. I mean, I think the change of scenery to Detroit, even though it's occurred a little while ago now, but we probably haven't seen as much as we'd want to of him in the Pistons uniform, but he's looked good. He's looked really solid.
If you said to someone who wasn't aware and you were watching a Pistons game with Bagley and you said to him, a couple of years ago, this guy was the number 2 overall pick. Do you reckon they'd believe you or laugh at you?
They'd cackle in your face, I reckon.
Yeah.
And But that's understandable given the fact that like you'd probably be expecting a bit more out of a 10.6 rebound type bloke. But
what a letdown given that class. So you had Ayton, you had Bagley, you had Trae Young and Luka Doncic.
yes,
Was Shea in that one as well? I believe.
Shea, yeah, I think he was.
I think so
wasn't
as
he?
well.
Yeah.
But so, wouldn't you be kicking yourself if you're the Kings drafting Bagley and you're looking at arguably a potential Mount Rushmore player in Luka,
Yep.
a superstar in Trae, another superstar in the making in Shea, and thinking, where did it all go wrong?
He's still got time though, which I like. He's still very young. He's got time on his side, but he just needs sooner rather than later to get on top of these injury concerns because at the moment, they've to a certain extent tainted his early part of his career.
I agree, mate. Well, last point from me. Now, this was a trade, a little mock trade by Bill Simmons the other day. I want to pose it to you guys and see who you think's kind of the winner out of it. As the trade deadline heads into February, it's still a bit of time for moves to be made, so could be something that plays out here. But it's a 3-team deal, so the Toronto Raptors receive D'Angelo Russell, Nikola Jovic, and a 2023 first-round pick from Miami. Minnesota received Kyle Lowry, and Miami received Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. How do you guys feel about that one? Again, it's off the dome. It's hard when you can't really see
read
it.
that again. Yeah.
Yep,
Okay, let's see.
Have a little squiz at that one.
So just once again, Raptors received D'Angelo Russell, Jovic, and a first-round pick.
Yep.
Wolves received Kyle Lowry. Heat received Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. Or I'd be happy if I was the Heat, I reckon.
Yep.
I'd be happy if I was the Heat receiving VanVleet, knowing his all-star potential. And he gives his all every night. And Gary Trent Jr. is a solid role player, solid three-point guy on his night. Sometimes goes a bit cold.
You're giving up Jovic, who was showing a little bit. Haven't seen a great deal of him yet. The first-round pick, you deal with that. But getting back VanVleet and Trent Jr.
And I wouldn't be too concerned really giving up Kyle Lowry at this point of his career.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I'd be happy if I was the Heat with that trade.
For the Wolves, though, giving up D-Russ and essentially giving up D-Russ to get Lowry back, it's essentially a straight swap for them.
It's not bad. You bring some veteran experience,
leadership potential.
He doesn't really fit with their timeline, does he?
He doesn't, but like, does D'Lo?
What's he, 27, 28?
Yeah.
A little bit better. What's Lowry now, 34?
Yeah. He's over the hump for
sure.
He's
over the hump. So it was an interesting one, and it just kind of got me thinking, what's going to play out over the next few weeks? There's a lot of teams, and we'll probably speak to it more shortly, that are, right in that no man's land. There's a couple that aren't in that top tier contenders, but could make a move. I tell you what, there's a lot of storylines to play out, lads.
Do you think it's a foregone conclusion, just quickly, that D'Angelo Russell is on his way out of Minnesota? Because he's been right in the middle of these trade talks. There's been countless trade rumors surrounding him. I just wonder, his time in Minnesota, I think, is all but coming to an end.
I'm going to pump the brakes there, just because they're a team I'm going to speak about very shortly. Yes. So I'll touch on that more a little bit, but it could be just about curtains there, I reckon. Yep. Very good, lads. Let's move ahead.
The Daily Dribble.
Excellent. So, as I said, we wanted to discuss our biggest standing surprises so far, for better or worse. There's certainly been a lot of intriguing things that have played out so far in the first 40 or so games of the season. So I thought we'd just open it up to the floor, take it whichever way you want, discuss any team you want, and we'll just nut it out for a bit. Lee, what's been one of your biggest surprises so far?
One of my biggest surprises has been where the Brooklyn Nets are sitting, and that's second overall. In saying that, they're second, tied with about 4 teams, and it's crazy to think that, but nonetheless, they're second. They had a rocky end to last season, getting swept by Boston in the first round. Had a worrisome off-season trade rumors circulating around both their star players, Kyrie and KD. And then even coming into the season, they had a poor start.
Really poor start.
On the court, and then with Nash getting fired, Kyrie's, anti-Semitic controversy. It was, I really thought they were on track.
I'd forgotten about that, sorry. Just based on how they've gone, I forgot about the whole Kyrie situation.
I thought they were on a similar route to where the Lakers are right now. Probably a bit better, but around that mark. Like I said, now they're tied second in the league. The tsunami settled. the shots are falling and they're getting efficient shots too. They're putting all the pieces together. I didn't think they'd be sitting second overall.
They were running with a 12-game win streak before they lost to the Bulls. Was it yesterday?
Yeah,
the day before.
Day before.
The day before, because I was watching that game and I kind of thought, oh, no, it's in Chicago. I reckon they'll just keep this streak going 13. The Bulls, held control for pretty well most of the game, but take nothing away from what the Nets have done over the last month or so.
And I mean, it's completely coincided with the head coach change as well. Like, I think it's plain and obvious to see that Jacques Vaughn is been a catalyst in why they have performed as well as they have recently. They just weren't buying into what Steve Nash was putting out there, and it was plain to see. It blows my mind that a team with that much high-end talent, as well as really valuable role players on that team, weren't performing anywhere near their potential. But when you're not buying into the coach's plan, you can sort of see how that happens. But now they're sort of reaping the rewards.
And is it almost, I think that now we kind of just, it's almost like LeBron with KD and Curry and all these players, they've done it at such a high level for so long that even Giannis to a certain extent that we almost, not discredit, but we don't give them the accolades they deserve for their performances. Like KD is performing at an absolutely elite level and could certainly, in any other year, would probably be favourite for MVP at the moment.
And he's still in contention.
He's still in contention, 30-plus points a game, just dominating the floor. He is just poetry in motion to watch on the offensive end. And, the way they're playing, TJ Warren coming off the bench, Curry coming off the bench.
What an Arbo.
Someone talk about him.
There's a lot to like about them. And I think this is kind of the vision that we saw when this Nets, even with the Harden iteration of it, this big three, how dominant they could be. It's starting to come to fruition.
Yep, absolutely.
Very good, lads. I'll move ahead. I'll speak about the Minnesota Timberwolves, just as we touched on them a couple of moments ago there, Ro. It's been a big surprise to me how poorly they're doing at the moment. Sitting 11th with a record of 18-21. Granted, Cat's out at the moment, but even when he was healthy, they looked poor. They looked really poor. After giving up an absolute mint for Rudy Gobert, the signs are quite worrying at the moment, I think. They just feel very disjointed. Edwards, who's been a lot better over the last couple of weeks, they just haven't got that consistency. D'Lo, again, kind of feels like almost the odd man out. How's it all going to play out when they get back, Cat? And I'm not sold on their depth at all. I'm not sold on their depth. Austin Rivers, Garza,
What do they have? They sold away all their depth for Rudy.
They traded the whole lot.
Yeah,
they traded the whole house for him, and he just hasn't kind of found his straps yet. It's been a little bit better without Cat.
Yeah, a little bit. But
when he comes back, what happens?
Yeah, exactly. Which he no doubt will sooner rather than later. But they're one of these teams coming into the season. I was actually looking at my season predictions as I was writing my notes, and they were one of these teams that I said could finish anywhere between 4th and 10th. And at the moment, they're sitting, 11th?
11th at the moment.
So they're even worse than
the bearing down on them, might I just say.
Yeah. So they're even lower than the lowest expectations that I had on them. And that's after making a move that they, within their organisation, would have elevated them into serious playoff contenders.
Yep.
And at the moment, they don't even look like making a play in the way that they're playing. It's just not working. I know it's still considerably early days, given the fact that we're sort of halfway into the first season of the Rudy Gobert Cat show, but it's just not working. They need to make some changes.
So what is that move then? So what is that move? And I'll say it to both of you. Is it, do you look at getting rid of a Cat and just making it purely Edwards' team with the pieces around him? Do you get rid of D'Lo and try and retool with Cat, Gobert, Russell, Edwards, pardon me? Which route do you go here? Do you already give up on Gobert come season's end, possibly? You're not going to get back anywhere near what you paid for him.
Yeah,
I think you start with perhaps, because Finchie's ass must be on the hot seat, right?
It's getting quite warm, I would have thought.
You've got too much talent too early to throw it away. I'd probably look into a change of a head coach to start with.
Okay.
And then from there, D'Lo has to be on the line.
Well, we saw what we just spoke about, the Nets bringing in Jacques Vaughn there. What impact that had on the franchise? Could something similar happen with the Wolves, you think, there, Lee?
I think
that's
so.
What your thinking is?
I hope so. I've said for the longest time, they don't play smart ball. They're quite not too intelligent team.
Say
you know?
the word
They
dumb.
They're dumb. They play dumb ball.
No ball like you.
Cat at that power forward spot is running around the court. I don't think it's change of head coach.
The
would be
thing
a
that
start.
I find with this team, I don't know if you guys have, and I probably haven't watched that many of their games this year for good
I've
reason.
watched too many.
Oh, have you?
Too many.
But every time I watch it, it sort of feels like they're sort of all playing for themselves. They're not necessarily playing for the team. It's a bunch of talented individuals, but it's not really cohesive as a team.
And that comes back to this trade, doesn't it? They don't have a guy like Russell's tried to adapt a little bit more. He's been known as a scorer. They don't have someone who's just going to set the table and just play make, do they?
No, absolutely
And I
not.
guess that's where that Lowry comes in, a guy who can score 6 points a game. It doesn't matter, but can just dish the ball.
Brings that championship pedigree as well, which I think is super valuable and super underrated. I think sometimes yes, he's over the hump in his career, but the stuff that he can bring, the knowledge and experience he can bring to a team which is struggling massively and have been pretty for a little while now, that'd be super valuable for them. And I think it's probably worth a look into if I'm the Wolves.
I certainly agree. Ro, what has been one of your biggest surprises early into the season?
I
can't even say early now. It's halfway, isn't it?
It's halfway through the season.
Scary.
The New York Knicks have been one of my absolute biggest surprises. One of these teams, particularly, we saw a few years ago, they surprised the hell out of us. And to be honest with you, I thought that was going to be a flash in the pan, particularly after last year. Again, they were disappointing. They were back to the Knicks of old. We had, their star players not performing at the level that they needed to, namely Julius Randle. RJ Barrett was mediocre. Now sitting at 6 in the East, I was expecting them to be hovering around that bottom part of the bottom 8. But no, they've come out. And I tell you what, we just touched on that guy, Julius Randle. He's back with a vengeance this season.
Been really good.
He was, to a certain extent, he was sort of at the butt of some of our jokes before this season started. And probably unfairly so, given the fact that he's when you look at the box score, he still performed quite well last year, but just not anywhere near.
Got a little bit carried away, old Julius, I think, at times.
He did, but this year he's averaging 24, 10 and 4, and he's been on an absolute tear over the last fortnight, averaging 31, 13 and 4. The addition of Jalen Brunson has been enormous as well. Yep. So far this year, he's averaging 23 and 6. And RJ Barrett, he's been a good third option as well, averaging 19, 5 and 3. So there's...
I thought he was... There you go. I thought he was a bit higher than that.
Yeah, hovering around that 19 mark. Yep. So we've got their main 3 guys who are doing what they're being paid to do at the moment, all hovering around that 20 or thereabouts mark, which is really, really good news for them. And the way that they've been playing recently, I think there's no doubt about it. They are looking like they can seriously contend for a playoff position, which I think if you're a New York fan, gives you so much hope because
that's a win, I think, given how last season went.
I think so. And I think if you're a New York fan as well, like after last season, you might have been thinking, okay, we had that one good season. Now it's just back to another decade of mediocrity. It's just, but they've bounced back and they've honestly shocked me because knowing New York, knowing the history of this franchise, particularly over the last, 5 to 10 years, you just would have thought they're probably not going to perform as well as their fans would be expecting them to.
And they're in a spot, I think, where they are certainly over exceeding expectations, but they've got pieces that could be moved to enhance this squad. You look at Obi Toppin, Evan Fournier, they'd certainly want to offload his contract. Cam Reddish might still garner a little bit in a package. Even D-Rose, you could possibly look.
No, don't trade D-Rose.
Don't want to trade him?
Back to the Bulls.
I would not.
Well, there was talk about that.
But I would not trade him if I was the Knicks.
But there are pieces to be moved there, aren't they? That could get them. They're certainly not going to be a contender as such, but to be a tough playoff out, I still think there's quite a few teams that are considerably better than they are. But there's options to be made, I think, and they've certainly well and truly exceeded my expectations.
So do you reckon Julius Randle or Jalen Brunson is number 1 on this team? Now, I know I have Brunson bias because of my fantasy, and I know Ro has Randle bias
but I'm
because
leaning
of his
towards
fantasy.
Barrett because of my fantasy.
Oh, come on. No, you got to get out of that.
No, I think he is.
No, right now.
Are you saying who do you think?
Who's number 1 right now?
Who's the focal point on this team?
I think it's probably RJ. I don't think. No. I think they're grooming him to be. Like, I think he's probably not. He's not playing the best out of those three at the moment, but I think he's the one that they're pushing to be the number one.
Just quickly,
We
do you have
saw him
RJ in your fantasy team?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, there we go.
But
It's
come on,
fantasy
man.
There was a
bias.
game the other week where he had like 37 points and 6 and 6 or something. He was phenomenal in it. It was a game where they just fed him, and I think they're trying to do more of that. Like, as you say, that's why it shocked me when you said 19 points. I think that's probably the guy they're grooming. I'd say probably Randall's the number one at the moment, but I think going forward, they're going to try and make Barrett the number one.
Okay. So we got 3 different opinions on the table here, which is good.
There you go. Variety's the spice of life, mate. There we go.
Lee?
Lee, what have you got?
I've got Miami Heat, surprising me for the worse. And I mean, not too bad. I just thought they'd be higher. They're sitting 8 right now, 20-19 record. They've been on quite a good run the last couple of games, so I will give them that. But
Bollocks. Did you watch the game yesterday?
yes,
Tell me about it. Tell me.
Well,
Tell me how good the Lakers, no AD, no LeBron, just Westbrook time, baby.
They've lost a lot of winnable games, namely
Big win.
the LeBronless, the AD-less Lakers, and
you
also
watch it?
no Lonnie Walker.
No Lonnie Walker. I was watching it and I was like, oh, okay. You can just feel it's coming. You know, after halftime, the Heat, they've got that talent. Hero was quiet. You could just feel him coming out to cook. Nope.
Wasn't the case.
It wasn't to be.
No.
Look out. I tell you what, a lot of heart in that game.
Did you get a bit of pep back in your step after that one?
It did. It
Yeah,
really
I
made
would've
me
thought
proud.
so.
Yeah, so that kind of speaks to they'll have a couple of good games and then they'll take one step back.
Because they
Couple
had made
steps
some
forward
ground,
once
hadn't they, in
they
the last
have.
few weeks?
I mean, Bam is playing probably the best bowl of his life. He's been outstanding.
I agree.
Jimmy's been serviceable. He's been injured a little bit, but
Hot
he's
and cold.
playing as he should. But then you look at Kyle Lowry, you think he's lost his touch, especially defensively. He's not reliable on the defensive end. Strus isn't too much of a threat from 3 anymore. Vincent struggles with his consistency. Right now, I just think they're
Duncan
looking...
Robinson, one of the worst contracts in the league.
I think they're looking like a playing team who, if they make it into the playoffs, they'll get swept.
It's quite disappointing because you look at, like you mentioned before, Lee, the name Max Strus, and he's a guy who looked like it was only upside for him to come. Like it looked like he was going to be one of these 3-point snipers going forward. And probably Yurtseven as well. Probably hasn't panned out the way they were expecting it to this season. They have been a surprise, but I still, to be honest with you, have faith that going forward they can sort of rejig themselves back up the standings. I think at the halfway point, it certainly hasn't gone the way they wanted to, but it's fairly close. Don't know how many games they are behind the true contenders, but I reckon
So they're 7 behind first. They're knocking on the door of the pace. Well, let's do this. So, do you think the Miami Heat? We'll use the 6th and 7th because I think the top 5 are probably better. Do you think the Heat are better than the Pacers?
What are we saying right now? Because
yes.
I completely agree with Ro. I think they will have an uptick in efficiency and climb their way.
You
up
think the Heat's better?
Then the Pacers, yes. Yeah, I do.
I'm all aboard the Pacers.
Oh,
I'm going the Pacers.
Mate,
I
I'm
like
about
their
to
depth.
touch on the Pacers.
Oh, there we go. I won't say too much. And then the Knicks. Do you think they're better than the Knicks then?
Probably not right now, but like I said, towards the end of the season, I think they could be.
I think they'll be above the Knicks, yeah.
I don't.
Wow. You look.
I'm flat on the Heat.
You look at Boston last year. They had
Really
a woeful start to the season. As soon as that All-Star game hit, they were on a run, and they've probably had the best end second half.
But with that, the Lakers also had a shocking start, and they completely dicked out, didn't they?
Yes.
Garbage.
Yeah.
Can go either way.
It certainly can. With the Heat, though, Lee, so you think if they do make the playoffs, they're getting swept?
If they keep playing how they're playing, yes.
Okay. There you go. I mean, they're an interesting team, aren't they? They should be a lot better than what they are, yet you wouldn't completely rule them out.
No.
They're funny old spots. Let me talk about here the Phoenix Suns.
Please do.
Oh, dear. Okay. Well,
where do you start?
They are struggling. Currently sitting 8th, tied with the 9th place team, the Warriors, there with a 20-19 record, nearly under 500 now. After an incredible start, they've just bottomed out. They've lost on a 4-game losing streak. They're 3-7 in their last 10. Looked like a shell of themselves without Booker in the lineup there. And as we all know, CP3 isn't getting any younger.
No.
I think they're more looking so like a playing team. And at the way they're going, depending how much longer Booker's out, the Wolves could still do a little bit of damage. The Jazz, they've slipped recently, but they've still got enough talent there. The Lakers are starting to build a little bit more so now. Hopefully AD back shortly. They're in danger of slipping below the playing picture at the minute. Like, I'm not saying they'll finish there, but they're in danger at the moment. There's a lot of teams catching up. And as I said, they've still got quite a few road games to come. I'm quite concerned about this team at the moment. Do you have any faith in them, fellas?
Look, do I have faith in them that they can elevate themselves again? Yes. But to be like, I completely agree with everything you've said. It's looking quite ominous at the moment for the Phoenix Suns. We mentioned after they made the finals and they lost the finals that there was a window that they had, and that window was closing very quickly. And I think what we're seeing at the moment is, even though that window isn't completely closed, it isn't shut, it's closing rapidly. And
I think the Mavs pretty well shut it on them.
Yeah,
and
well,
game 6 and 7, flattening them, I think exposed them.
I think they definitely made an impact. Yeah, for sure. So I think what we're seeing is the Suns are sort of falling out of contention to be true contenders. And will they elevate themselves? Maybe, but I think from what I've seen so far, they're probably not going to be up there contending with the big dogs.
Yourself, Lee, you look at the talent in the West at the minute, the Nuggets, the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, bloody, blah. It's so deep at the minute. Yeah. Where do you see them in the hierarchy at the moment? Even with, let's say, Booker's back.
I think their problem is they've taken their foot off the pedal for a bit too long. Their hands off the steering wheel for a bit too long. They got a bit too comfortable.
Bit of knee driving, you reckon?
Bit of knee driving.
That's a Nick special if ever I've seen it.
Bloody eyes.
I think the thing that everyone loved about them the most has been their downfall, and that's how fun of a team they were and how good their chemistry looked. But then you look at it from a different perspective, and it's like maybe they should have been shooting the ball in shoot-arounds. Maybe they should have been putting a bit more effort in. I think.
Did you watch the game? Oh my goodness, it was the hardest watch I've ever seen. Watching them play the Cavs the other day.
Yeah, go ahead.
It was like 13-16 or something stupid at quarter time, and I was like, oh my goodness,
that's a tough watch.
And then quarter 2 didn't get any better. Yeah, it was third and fourth quarter slightly better, but it was just bricklayers everywhere. It was the same with the Raptors and Bucks game. It was like a 13-14 first quarter. I was like, are you taking the piss?
Yeah,
like this is
highest level league in the world.
It was honestly painful to watch that game, and I thought, Mitchell coming off the back of 71. The Suns will be fired up, need a win. And nothing.
The thing with the Suns, you can pick out probably every player individually and nitpick little points at them. DeAndre Ayton playing like he was in trade talks, which he was.
He wanted to go to Indiana.
D-Book, not super consistent. He blows up when he's on fire, but if not, he has stinkers. CP3, not getting younger. Campaign and Landry Shamet, they're like D-Book. They're good when they're good, but if they're having an off night, you're not getting anything from them.
They're playing like a demoralised team, and I think it sort of does come back to what you were saying, Nick, about the Dallas Mavericks absolutely putting the sword to them, because when that kind of thing happens to your franchise, particularly when internally you think you should be true contenders, it does serious damage to the future of your franchise.
What were they in the year prior in the finals against the Bucks? They were 2-zip up, weren't they? Forgive me.
I think so.
Followed it from there. Yeah. Last season, every indicator was pointing to them being champions, or at least Western Conference or NBA finalists. Didn't even make the Western Conference finals. Game 6 and 7, game 7 at home there, and just getting absolutely torched.
Yep.
Game was over first quarter. That lingers.
It does.
I think I'm just about done with this team this year. I don't see a way in which they're kind of coming back, being better than the teams ahead of them. Even the teams below them coming up now, I'm starting to have a little more faith in them. There we go.
Says a lot.
Roy, let's move ahead.
One of my biggest surprises this season, the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
Like, we've spoken about them so far this season as just being these out of the blue teams. We're sort of thinking, okay, when are they going to start dropping down the standings? When are they going to start dropping back down to 12th position in the West,
Yep.
which have become so accustomed to doing over the last decade? But no, currently sitting 5th in the West with a 2017 record, so still sitting above 500. As I said, it's completely come out of the blue this season. And particularly after they lost, or they did lose him, but they basically just gave up Tyrese Halliburton, who many thought would be the future of their franchise.
Yep.
You thought they couldn't possibly go any lower, but now they might just do that. They might drop down to the bottom 3 positions in the standings. But no, it's worked out really well. They sort of seem really rejuvenated or something this season.
I think so too.
There's like a really good overall team chemistry.
It's the beam, mate. Like the beam.
Yeah, I
fired
know.
up.
The beam is having an impact for sure.
Yeah, bloody hell.
And even having things like giving the best defensive player for that night, what do they give them? Like a necklace type thing with the decoy thing on it. Like it's this kind of thing which is making a difference. And it's just small things like that. But I think it's improving the overall feel within the locker room. A locker room which is for so long, since the 2005-6 season, been accustomed to missing the playoffs. So it's been a lot off the back of a few people in particular. I talk about Domantas Sabonis, who, in my personal opinion, I think should be an all-star this year.
Playing with a broken finger, isn't he? And
Is he?
he currently is the last couple of games, and he's elected not to have surgery or whatever because it was going to keep him out too long, especially while they're in the midst of this push, not wanting to kind of slide down. So he's playing injured. And what game was it? The other night they played the Grizzlies. It was the Grizzlies, and Steven Adams just absolutely ate him because he just couldn't go up and match him injured.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what it means to him, what it means for the franchise at the minute, that he's willing to play through it.
It speaks to, that's exactly right. It speaks to, like, if this was like a few years ago, just say, and they're hovering around that 12-13 mark still, Sabonis has taken a holiday. He's off, but he's averaging 18, 12 and 6 so far. Should make his 3rd All-Star appearance. Fox has been doing his part. He started off the season on fire. He's come back down to earth a little bit, but he's still averaging...
Lately.
Yeah, what's that?
The last week, game winners after game winners, just his ability to drive. He is, I think, and I heard it on the broadcast the other day, when he's dribbling, he is the quickest player in the league.
Did they test that? I think they had proved that.
One the other day, I think it was 4 seconds or something he had to get from coast to coast.
Yep.
And I think it was the game winner he hit.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible. He's so electric.
That's what we know him for, being that explosive, fast guy.
So quick.
But in saying that, his mid-range game has improved immensely this season.
They all have the floaters.
But not even the floaters, just jumpers. I think he's shooting 52% from mid-range this season, and I think I saw that was like top 4 or 5 in the league, and that's De'Aaron Fox. I think he's just improving overall in the game. 24, 6 and 4.5 boards on 50.4% field goal.
It's good.
It's been so good to see, because last year we kind of thought his career might be plateauing a little bit. Like we thought
that's what it felt. He just stagnated.
Yeah, it wasn't going to progress naturally anymore. Likewise with the Kings, it sort of seemed like they were sort of hovering around in that bottom part of the 8. But they've also been receiving contributions from the other guys within their starting 5. So we look at Kevin Huerter.
Big pickup.
He looks like prime Clay right now.
He looks so good, doesn't he?
Big pickup. I think he might be him and Malik Monk for this team.
Malik Monk.
2 of the most underrated pickups of the off-season.
I think so. They've been overlooked massively.
What would I give for the Lakers to have back the old monkey man at the minute? He's been unreal.
Someone who can shoot the ball.
Keegan Murray's looked good.
Yeah.
So was Davion Mitchell in his 2nd season. But I need to give some credit to Mike Brown once again.
Yes.
My all-star coach. He's a player's coach. He's probably my favourite coach at the moment.
Good relationship with the players.
He puts his all into the players. He jumps out on the court when a wrong foul's called. I love Mikey.
He would give anything to protect his players, and he's always going to be on his players' side.
Yeah.
So no, he's been enormous for them. And for you guys, where do you think? Yes, they're sitting at 5th at the moment. Is there still doubts about whether they can make the playoffs? Is there still doubts whether they will even make the play? And like, do you envisage the Sacramento Kings to continue somewhat from what we've been seeing so far, or do you not have the faith in them?
I think for me, I'm thinking playing. I think probably the Clippers will get them possibly the Blazers, the Warriors expecting Curry back very, 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 very soon. I would.
There's a few good teams below them.
I'd have more faith in them. I think they're a playing team. I'm trying to think, is there a world in which they drop out of that? Probably not.
No.
Although they're only the Lakers and Wolves are only 3 or 2.5, 3 games back of them. They've still got a lot of work to do, but I envisage them season's end in the play-in, should I say?
Yep, and chasing that elusive playoff appearance.
Since 2005, I was probably learning my ABCs when they made the playoffs last.
Yeah, it would have been
fresh out of the womb, just about.
Ready about to head into kindergarten.
Not quite that. What year were you born?
01.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
Learn to shit for yourself and all that good stuff. But they are fun, aren't they? They're a fun team. And for yourself, Lee, where do you see them falling season's end?
I hope they fall around the 6 mark, just making the playoffs.
Just scraping in.
But I probably think 9 or 8.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you, I think. Yeah, around that 8, 9, potentially 10. As I said, and we're just looking at the standings as we speak, there's a few really good teams below them. So you got to be wary of that.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. Well, I'll push ahead with my next one. The Dallas Mavericks, currently sitting 4th. I think it's slightly surprising, given that they don't have an out-and-out number 2. It really has been an all-time historic season thus far from Luka Doncic, and the fact that he's not, MVP favorite just speaks to the volumes of some of what the output of these other players is. Certainly, well and truly in the running still, no doubt.
Oh yeah.
But he has just been incredible, and that stat line the other day, as you said, Lee. What was it? 60, 22, and 10 overtime game. It was incredible, like historic in its own right. Broke a heap of records, but it's not even quite that surprising, I guess, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Which just speaks to the level he's at the moment. It's great to see Kemba Walker in the team, getting some minutes, playing good ball. They're just, I don't know. In terms of the West hierarchy, I think they're just outside. Like I think 4 is a bit of an over at the minute. I think based on their roster, they're probably a 6, 7, 8 team. But just given the way how good Luka's been, he's elevated him to this spot. So I certainly wouldn't want to face them in a series. I think they're a little bit off the pace at the moment in terms of overall roster construction. But I tell you what, he's incredible. There's not enough superlatives to actually speak to him how good he's been.
I don't think there's not many players in the league who can score with the utmost ease as Luka Doncic. Like we've always spoken about Luka Doncic, and it's been widely publicized that he's not the quickest player, not the most athletic, but he just always finds a way to put the ball in the bucket. And he does that on any given night. You look at the box score, he's an automatic 30, 10, and 10 player.
Best pickup for my fantasy team.
He's
guaranteed
enormous
money. In terms of all the superstars within the league, is there any player do you think who's got to do more for a team? Like who's responsible for more of the work?
God,
he's got the biggest?
No. Yeah, he's got the biggest responsibility.
Especially now Brunson's out. If he were to go down, and I think that's where a little bit of the lack of faith for me comes with the Mavs. Should he go down, they're up the creek.
Even for like a week or two.
Oh, they're dropping right down if he's gone for a week or two.
It's like how close it is.
It's like when AD was out last season, like for most of the season, then LeBron went down and it started dipping.
Yeah.
But he just plays at his own pace. I saw Pat Bev say from a opponent's perspective, it's hard to gauge his tempo. He said, like some players you can gauge it and it'll be like boom, boom, but he's like boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom.
And then he has those little bursts.
Yeah.
It's not the quickest bloke, but his
acceleration.
He lulls people in, doesn't he?
Yep.
Super fun, this team. So certainly overs there for the Mavs in 4th at the moment for me.
My last huge surprise this season, I think it's been a huge surprise for a lot of NBA fans, is the Indiana Pacers. Sitting at 7th in the East, performed so much better than anyone would have anticipated, even with such a good player in Tyrese Halliburton. You look at that roster overall, and I don't think you're expecting a playoff contender You saw, like, from my perspective, I was thinking they've got Tyrese Halliburton now. It's sort of the start of a rebuild.
Yeah.
Like, you start to dish off Miles Turner.
Hasn't he?
He's been so good.
A couple of weeks ago, since he said the Lakers, you should look at getting me on that interview or whatever. He's been great.
He's upping his trade. He's upping his value, isn't he?
Like, is it because he wants to stay? Do you think now, like he's buying in, or is he still looking for the exit?
Yeah, maybe he's looking to stay. Who knows?
They're in the plane at the minute. The Lakers aren't in the plane. So.
Yeah, well, he's averaging. He's fourth average in blocks this season, so he's back to his best in terms of blocks, and he's also contributing 16 points so far this season, which is a bounce back to what he was providing, the last season, which is really good to see. But they've caught me off guard. We look at Tyrese Halliburton averaging 21, 4, and 10, and he's probably just behind Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in terms of most improved player from my perspective anyway this season. Buddy Hield, he's been solid. He's probably been as consistent as he's probably ever been in his career, because he's always been the type of player who is an absolute flamethrower from the 3-point line, but he can also have games where he can be dead cold as well.
He had a good game against the what do you have? 24, 9, and 6 and 2 steals against the against the 76ers the other day, which was fantastic. I was watching it, and he's just money.
Yeah, he is. He's added a little bit more consistency, which is nice, and is what the Indiana Pacers need, because they can't rely as heavily on Tyrese Halliburton. And Miles Turner, at the end of the day, is more of a defensive-minded player as opposed to an offensive-minded player. It's just been the cherry on top that he's been able to provide a few more points. But Nemhard's been undersung, I think, as well. I think he's been good.
Matherin's cooled down a little bit, but still been fantastic.
Yep.
Probably maybe second in the Rookie of the Year race, maybe still. Dropped a little bit.
Early days, he was a clear second, but
it's tightened up a little bit there now. But they're a fun team, aren't they? They're kind of, I guess, the way forward, the blueprint's been set for the next couple of years with that young core that they're building now, aren't they?
For sure. Could Tyrese Halliburton be a MVP contender over the next few seasons if the Indiana Pacers can keep it up? Because I see him similar to Luka Doncic in the way, nowhere near the level that Luka's at, but I see him in the fact that he's going to be able to lead the teams to victories, which he's done so far this season.
Steve Nash MVP kind of run, wouldn't it?
Not facilitate
35 points a game.
Not the triple doubles every game. No.
I could say a world.
Yeah, I think I can as well.
Don't think I could.
I too much other talent.
Yes, exactly. God, I wish he could be an MVP because
What about in his entire career? Let's rule out the next few years. What about in his entire career?
I still, unfortunately, I don't think he'd crack top 3, to be honest. In saying that, I think he's maybe top 15, top 20 right now, but there's just too much talent. You're like, I don't even have to name the names. But
I know. No, I'm with you.
I can see a world where he's in contention. Whether he would actually win the MVP is a different story, but I think he's probably he would have to be if the Indiana Pacers.
All NBA first team then. What do you reckon? He's got that potential then.
Yeah, I think so.
I guess the top 5 players within the league.
Yep. Okay, I'll give him that because I could see him cracking 7th, 8th in MVP talks.
Okay.
All his key statistical categories are increasing, and I think he's still early days in his career. He could probably be a 25, 5, and 11 player.
Yeah, I see that too. What a pickup for the Pacers. It was that whole Sabonis Halliburton trade. It really divided fans, fan bases, divided us a little bit, I think, as well.
Yeah.
But it's really working out just tremendously for both franchises at the moment. So loving what Halliburton's doing. Last one from me, guys, the Toronto Raptors.
Raps.
Yeah.
Where are they
sitting 12th at 16 and 22. An extremely, extremely disappointing season so far.
Yep.
And they're a team that comes back to that trade at the top of the show. We mentioned they're in a real funny spot. Between push forth with this iteration of the team or blow it up. A lot of talk around possibly Fred VanVleet moving on, OG Anunoby with his high value at the moment.
Yep.
Do you offload Siakam possibly? Why his value is so high as well? There's a lot of different routes this team could go, and just in a real funny spot. It was incredible the other day watching their game against the Bucks. Just an absolute brick fest for the first half. the game with pretty much 2 minutes to go was over. They were down by 15.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most incredible comebacks I've seen in recent time. By the grace of God, managed to send it to OT. Giannis kind of turned it on then, but an incredible comeback and just kind of showed how good this team can be when they lock in. But we also saw the worst of them in the first couple of quarters. So I just don't know where they're at. I think it's probably time to make some moves.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. And I was just having a quick look. I just wanted to see where I had them in my Eastern Conference standings. I thought I had them quite low, but I had them 9th. And
I think I was around the same.
At the time I did that, I was thinking, I probably should be giving them a little bit more credit because I could probably see them sitting around that 6th to 7th mark. But there's just something about them that
they always hit overs. Is it 9 out of 10 in their predicted kind of record? They've hit the overs.
Yeah, I think they have. So they've even dropped below my lowest expectations. And me sitting them at 9th was me sort of putting myself out there to a certain extent because they could have been higher, but they've been quite awful, really, and they need to make changes. I know it's halfway through the season, but from what we've seen so far, they're not showing me any glimpses of improvement.
What pace is it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think
you get the thinking cap on. Your next.
I've got the think. I've had the thinking
cap. Okay, who are you
on.
going with then?
Well, I was going to say the seasons where they were performing well and finished kind of top of the East. What was it, like 3rd or 4th or something?
Second,
maybe.
They're hovering in contention. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That was the year that both Siakam and Fred VanVleet were playing amazing ball. Because we've said for the longest time they don't have one out and out superstar. For them to perform well, they need both their 2-star players to play amazing.
So he needs to have a kid, does he? That's the thing.
That's not my solution.
Freddie needs a kid. Another one.
Not Mini Drake. Siakam is playing amazing ball right now, I think. So I'd say Fred would be the piece to move.
Yeah, I don't think you can get rid of Siakam.
Yep.
I don't think so.
Yep.
Yeah, the last superstar was Kawhi Leonard, and look what that resulted in. Highest accolades of all time.
I think Fred's got to go as well, and hopefully it just enables Scotty to be a little bit better. He's cooled off this season, not quite reaching the heights we thought.
But I still think he's quite untouchable.
I think he's untouchable too.
Yeah. Unless it's for like he was in trade talks for KD.
And even then they didn't want to do it.
They didn't want to do it.
Hindsight's 2020. That's the way it's gone. Shit. But I agree. I think Fred's probably the piece to go. I think just given the way their roster's constructed, you could possibly look to get rid of OG as well while his value's so high. All teams are looking for that two-way player that for sure he's so formidable at. I think Fred would be the first, but I think if they were to get rid of Fred, it would open up the door for a couple more pieces to be moved with that as well.
I know this guy didn't start his season there, but God, I wish Kyle Lowry finished his season in Toronto. I feel like that's when the glue started falling apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's a heart and soul type player, isn't he?
Well, I think they mucked up when they lost Dragic going to the Bulls there. I thought he would have been a huge, just a backup guard just to help. Fred VanVleet's not a natural playmaker as such, but having Dragic there, I think would have been massive for Dragon, doing good things in Chicago.
Yep, for sure.
Lads, beautiful. There is the first episode of 2023 done. How are we feeling for the year? Big year coming up, late.
Bit tired, to be honest.
Bit too early on the Saturday morning.
Oh, mate, the birds
just
are
ticking
chirping.
over 11.
I was about to say the sun's shining, but it's not. But going to be a big year, isn't it, right?
Oh, it's going to be
certainly looking forward to it.
Yep, bounce back. There's a lot to look forward to in the back half of the season.
Yep.
I think what we've mentioned so far sort of just is the tip of the iceberg in terms of like the surprises this season. I think going forward, we're going to see some things that we probably weren't expecting.
Absolutely. When's trade season open? We know that's the best.
Trade season's on now, mate.
Is it?
Yeah, trade deadline.
When's the trade's going to come on?
Probably next couple of weeks.
When the trade's going to come on? Probably in the last 5 minutes of the trade period as per usual.
Bang, it all happens at once. So we'll certainly keep you guys up to date with all that. As we are now back into routine 2023, all your latest NBA and NBL news. Be sure to follow all of our socials. Subscribe wherever you listen to the show so you never miss another episode. And for myself, Lee and Roe, we'll be back next week to discuss everything NBA with you. See you later.